Well, my spookies, welcome back for another trip to the Weekly Spooky Vault, where the postcards are pretty, the locals are friendly, and the ground beneath your feet is actively telling you a lie. Tonight's theme is small town secrets, the kind you taste in the diner coffee and feel in the silence after someone says, "You're not from around here, are you?" In just a moment, you'll walk into a quiet town that hires an outsider for security, while a church renovation quietly opens the door to something that loves basements and forgotten history. Then we'll pass an abandoned factory where a shady deal turns into a sprint for your life, because some experiments do not stay buried. And after that, welcome to NEPA, or northeastern Pennsylvania, where the woods press in close, the dogs start acting wrong, and the moon makes everybody remember why they splurged on that second deadbolt. And if you think school is safe, well, wait until we visit Strickfield Academy, where a stolen uniform and a forbidden book can buy you power if you pay in blood. Finally, we'll meet someone with no voice at all, until the fog gives him one. So lock the doors, turn down the lights, and let's let the secrets crawl out. I Was Sent to a Small Town Where Strange Things Were Happening by Michael Kelso. Even thinking about retelling this story has made me the most afraid I've ever been in my life. I suppose if I keep it bottled up, I'll go insane. God knows the security company isn't talking. I feel like if I don't warn people and they go there. All right. If I'm telling the story, then I'd better back up a bit. It started a little over a month ago. I work for a security firm that guards projects all over the country. I'm sort of a specialist. It seems like if there's some weird stuff happening at a site, I get called in. I'm not sure why. Maybe my ex-military background, or maybe the fact that, well, we'll get to that. This place up in New England was having some trouble. A local firm was remodeling an old church when workers suddenly started quitting. No one seemed to have a good reason why they didn't want to work there anymore. So, guess who got the call to come in and straighten things out? Driving up there gave me the most profound feeling of being alone I've ever had. And mind you, I've sat watch in caves, foxholes, ditches, some of the most God-forsaken places on the planet, all by my lonesome, and never did I ever feel as soul-crushingly alone as driving up that little 2-lane road that was the only sign of humanity, as the trees seemed to close in on me from every side. As unnerving as that was, it was nothing compared to pulling into the little town where the church was. It was like the nightmare scene from a B-horror movie. I guess arriving at night in the middle of a rainstorm didn't help much. I pulled in beside the only vehicle I saw and ran inside the hotel that looked like a saloon out of an old western. I barely got the door closed when there was a light and a gun shoved in my face. "Who the hell are you?" said a man from somewhere behind the glare of a flashlight. "Jones," I said, slowly raising my hands. "I was called in to help out with your worker problem." The light lowered, but the gun stayed. "What company do you work for?" "Sentinel Security." I saw the man relax a little, but mostly I was happy that he lowered the gun. In the best of times, a gun in a situation is less than ideal. All kinds of accidents can happen. I've seen many innocent bystanders fall victim to contagious gunfire. The man stepped over to a table and sat. As I looked around the room, I was surprised at how much it looked like a movie set from an old western. Right down to the lit lanterns on the tables and hanging from the rafters. He beckoned me over and I sat across from him. Judging by the welcome, I'm guessing the workers aren't the only ones who are spooked, I said. He looked at the gun, then laid it on the table. He seemed to be in his 40s or 50s, but there was a tiredness in his eyes. He looked weary and haggard. Truth be told, I'm not even sure a gun would do any good. Maybe you should tell me when the trouble started. He looked at me. I could see worry tugging at his eyes. Your contract's open, right? I nodded. Which means you have to finish the job or you don't get paid, right? I nodded again. He looked me over for a long moment, then sat back, drained his glass of amber-colored liquid, and sighed. I bought this town a while back, he started. Recently, with the passing of my wife, I decided I needed to throw myself into a project to keep me busy. I wanted to revitalize this town and turn it into a tourist attraction. I'm sorry for your loss. He nodded in recognition, but never said another word about her. Things were going along smoothly, he said. The buildings you see have all been restored. They look good. You should have seen them when we started, he scoffed. They were falling apart. No one had lived here for years. That's why I was able to buy the whole place for next to nothing. I'm thinking that's not the only reason. Yes, he said, as a haunted look passed through his eyes. We saved the church for last because it needed the most work. But once they started remodeling is when things began to happen. Things? It wasn't much at first. Shovels and saws would go missing. Tools would be left in fine order at night only to be in complete disarray in the morning. For a while, the workers blamed each other, saying there was a prankster among them. But that wasn't the case? Oh, how I wish it was. I waited for a long moment for him to continue. We found the first body shortly after that, he said so quietly I barely heard him. Of a worker? He nodded. Dead? He nodded again. Why didn't you stop everything and leave? Because it was already too late, he said. We had disturbed it. Disturbed what? He opened his mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. He shook his head and looked away. For a moment, I could swear I saw a tear run down his cheek. I'm sorry, he said, rubbing his palms on his face. Let me take you to your room and we'll discuss this further in the morning. My curiosity wanted him to finish the story, but it seemed like his weariness had been amplified by alcohol. I followed him as he carried the lantern up the stairs to the first floor and opened it for me. He handed me the light and told me the bathroom was across the hall, if I needed it. I'll be here bright and early in the morning to give you the $1 tour, he said, sounding more like a host. Aren't you staying here tonight? His eyes flashed genuine fear. Not here, he said. I'll be back in the morning. I looked around the comfortable-looking room, trying to decide what was so wrong with it, as he stepped to the door. Oh, by the way, he said, stopping at the doorway. Don't bother with your cell phone. There's no signal up here. I glanced down at my phone, and when I looked up, he was gone. I picked up the lantern and stepped to the doorway, but I didn't hear him leaving. You would have thought someone walking out on the hardwood floor would make some noise, but it was silent. The only noise I heard was the rain pelting against the windows. Since I was already in the hallway, I decided to check out the bathroom. I walked a short distance down the hall and found it to be functional and clean, but nothing extraordinary. While I was there, I used the toilet and washed my hands, then went to my room and got my toiletries kit to brush my teeth. Carrying a lantern around was a little disconcerting. I've had to deal without electricity many times before, but that wasn't what was bothering me. The shadows from the lamp danced all over, giving the impression of others in the room with me. It's strange because I've never had that feeling before. Shadows were always just shadows. I was trained to be cautious of who could be hiding in the shadows, but not the shadows themselves. I finished up my bedtime routine and settled in to sleep. There wasn't much of anything else to do, so might as well get some rest. One of the things I was taught early on in my career was that any time you get a chance, rest. You never know when the next chance will come. I laid down on the comfortable bed and did some relaxation exercises. Before I knew it, I was asleep. I woke with a start, not knowing why. It was pitch black in the room. Instead of panicking, I touched my watch to illuminate it and found my phone. Turning on the flashlight and lighting the lamp helped me get my bearings, but still didn't tell me why I was awake. I sat there for a long moment. Then I heard it. There was a loud clanking sound coming from somewhere outside. Sleeping in my clothes when on a job was a habit I'd gotten into when I first started doing private security, another carryover from the military. I slipped out of bed and into my boots, then strapped on my utility belt, then checked to make sure my sidearm was loaded. I turned off the phone's flashlight and grabbed a small utility flashlight from one of the pouches on the belt. For the moment, I holstered the gun and explored with just the flashlight. This could be nothing. I didn't want to go in gangbusters just to find some kids playing around or a worker who came in early. I double-checked my watch. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. Seemed like an odd time for a worker to come in, but stranger things have happened. Working my way down the stairs quietly, I double-checked the bar room. It was empty. Opening the door, I had the strangest feeling that something was wrong. Nothing seemed to be out of place. It had stopped raining, and I stepped out into the street to find a light layer of fog. Looking up and down the street, I heard the noise again. It sounded like it was coming from the direction of the church. Leading with the flashlight, I started in that direction. There seemed to be a slight orange glow coming from the inside of the building the closer I got. The beam of my flashlight made the air around me glow. It made me feel like I was giving my position away. I fought back the feeling. This was a little town in Vermont, not an active war zone. I had to be cautious but also temperate with non-lethal actions. The church loomed in front of me. It seemed much larger up close. I climbed the steps and reached for the doorknob when a loud crack sounded behind me. I whipped around, shining my flashlight at everything. But there was nothing there. As I was looking back, I noticed a light in the window of my room. I must have left the lantern lit. As I looked, I saw the light dim for an instant and then get brighter, almost as if someone had walked in front of it. The temperature felt like it was in the lower 70s, but that didn't keep a chill from running down my spine. Someone was curious to know who I was. From years of experience, I've found that it's never good if someone wants to find out who you are, but doesn't want to do it face to face. That would be something to deal with when I got back to my room. For now, there was a church to explore. I got the feeling that someone was trying to distract me from entering. I reached the top of the stairs and turned the knob, but nothing happened. It didn't feel like it was locked. It was almost as if someone was on the other side, holding the knob. I turned as hard as I could, and finally it gave, and the door opened, dragging me inside and nearly knocking me to the floor. Regaining my balance, my hand hovered over my gun, expecting to see someone doing something they weren't supposed to. As I slowly panned around the room, I found something much worse. Absolutely nothing. There was a lit lantern set up on a table near the altar that was in the middle of being restored. Other than that, there were a lot of pews that were halfway constructed. The ones that were finished looked like they had been sanded and were waiting for a layer of stain. I walked down the center aisle as if looking for a seat at a wedding or a funeral. As I approached the partially reconstructed pulpit, I looked up and saw a life-size wooden carving of Jesus on the cross. It looked old, not like wine that ages well, but like decrepit. It had been painted flesh colors at one time, but now it was cracked and peeling away from the carving. It looked grotesque to see layers of skin peeling away like it was rotting off his body. I'm not the most religious man, but I believe in Jesus. I've prayed enough prayers, sitting in foxholes and caves, asking to be rescued from bad situations, and I'm still here. I wouldn't call him and I best buds. I know our relationship could be closer, but seeing him that way, rotting to pieces, was just disturbing. As I looked into his face, I swore I saw his eyes open for an instant. I blinked my own eyes to be sure I was seeing right, but when I looked again, they were closed. It was my imagination playing tricks on me. At least that was what I told myself as I stepped onto the platform and looked around. Off to each side were doors. I went to the one to the right and found a small broom closet. The one on the left held a set of stairs that went down and disappeared into darkness. Just inside the door there was yellow and black caution tape blocking the way down. I shone the light on the stairs, and they looked sturdy enough. I reached for the tape, but before I got a hold of it, a strong hand grabbed my shoulder and turned me around. "What do you think you're doing here?" said a man who was a full foot shorter than me, but his grip felt like iron. "I was about to go down those stairs," I said. He looked at me with the incredulous look a parent gave a toddler who was reaching for a hot stove. "And you didn't see the caution tape?" he said. "I saw it." "Who are you anyway? I've never seen you before." "Jones," I said, offering my hand. "I'm with Sentinel Security. I was called in to investigate why workers keep quitting." He looked at my hand, then at me. "So this investigation includes ignoring obvious warnings." My hand was still extended, but had yet to be shaken. I let it fall to my side. "Are you a worker or a foreman?" He scoffed. "Nothing so formal. I make sure people do what needs to be done." "So, foreman." His eyes bled with suspicion as he stared at me. "Where did you say you were from again?" As I was about to answer, more workers entered, followed by the owner I'd met last night. "Let's ask the boss if he knows you," the foreman said smugly. The owner locked eyes with me and gave me the strangest look as he walked up to us. "Good morning," he said, addressing both of us. "Good morning, sir," the foreman said. "I caught this man snooping around in here." "Did you now?" he said. "Is that true?" "I wasn't snooping. I was investigating," I said. "Don't you remember our conversation from last night?" His eyes opened a hair wider for an instant, then went back to normal. "Of course I do," he said with a smile that seemed forced. "Remind me again. My memory isn't the best." "We met in the saloon, talked for a little bit, and then you showed me to my room." "Indeed," he said with a raised eyebrow. "Did I say anything else?" "You told me you bought this place after your wife passed away, and problems started after you found the first dead worker." "Dead?" the foreman said with alarm. "When did this happen?" The owner burst into laughter. "It appears Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones here has pulled a fast one on you," he said to the foreman. "Perhaps he and I should go and discuss the matter in private, and you can continue with your work." The owner grabbed my arm and guided me away from the foreman, whose eyes burned as they followed us out the door. We walked out of the church in silence as he nodded to workers who were straggling in to start work for the day. He led me back to the saloon where we sat at the same table as before. "So you and I met in this saloon last night," he said. "At this very table," I said. I came to the door and you pulled a gun on me." His eyebrows raised. "Did I now? And what time was this?" "I'd say around 9. We sat here and talked about what was going on with the workers." "And what else did I say, other than about the worker?" "I asked you why you hadn't left, and you said it was too late." This time he didn't try to hide it. His eyes grew wide. He stared at me for a long moment, then seemed to gather himself. "I apologize, Mr. Jones, if this all seems a little strange," he said. "You and I did not have a conversation last night." It was my turn to raise my eyebrows. "At 9 o'clock last night, I was in bed with my very much alive wife." "But you said, 'and we have not had any workers die.'" "I don't understand. Neither do I." I thought about it for a long moment. "You were drinking when you talked to me. Is it possible you were too drunk to remember?" He leaned a little closer. "I haven't had a drink in 19 years. He reached into his pocket and set a coin on the table. I picked it up and looked at it. It was an Alcohol Anonymous coin. "Then, who did I talk to last night?" He put the coin back in his pocket. "Are you sure it was me who was drinking?" I looked at him and read the suspicion in his eyes. "I don't drink." He leaned back in his chair. "It seems we've reached an impasse," he said. "Perhaps I should call your company and have a different person come and investigate the matter." I wanted to find out what was going on. "Perhaps you should give me at least a day to investigate," I said, "unless there's some other reason you don't want me to get to the bottom of this." He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "Please continue your investigation, Mr. Jones," he said, unimpeded. "I will inform the foreman to allow you free rein." "Thank you," I said, standing to leave. "Just one more thing," he said. "What was the last part of what my doppelganger told you?" "You said it was too late to leave because you had disturbed something." His eyes fell to the table as if deep in thought. I went back to the church and began talking to the workers one by one. Each of them was hesitant to talk around the foreman, but once they were out of earshot told very similar stories. There had been strange things going on, especially at night. It was more than just tools being moved around. Strange symbols would appear carved into the wood they were using. The owner would tell them to cut the symbols out and use whatever they could of the wood. One of the workers had gone missing, but after a day or so, the owner said he had quit. The strange thing was, no one was able to contact him after that. The more I dug, the more I found. Some of the workers had become curious as to why they were restoring this town out in the middle of nowhere. It turned out it had been long suspected that satanic rituals were carried out in this very church. It was also suspected to be the site of the earliest witch burnings. But the two facts that stuck out in my mind were no one hung around after dark. That was when things were alleged to get strange, and no one was allowed down the steps I had found before the foreman stopped me. The workers had been told the steps were unsafe and could collapse under the weight of a person. It didn't take much convincing to keep them away from the creepy stairs. By afternoon, I knew exactly what my next move was. I went back to my room and checked around to see if anything was missing. Nothing seemed to be, so I set my watch and took a nap. The alarm went off at 9 o'clock. I went to the bathroom to splash some water on my face, then geared up for my expedition. When I got to the church, it was empty. I made a beeline for the left door and the creepy staircase. With flashlights attached to a headband and my waistband, I was good to go to keep my hands free for whatever I might need them for. I attached a safety rope like mountain climbers do and found a sturdy spot to anchor it into the wall. If the stairs gave out on me, at least I wouldn't fall. As advertised, every stair creaked like it was about to give out, but thankfully, none of them did. The trip down was an assault on the senses. The damp, musty smell of rotting wood and general decay was nearly overwhelming. I was surprised at the general lack of cobwebs. It told me this area wasn't quite as off-limits as some had let on. Surprisingly, the bottom didn't open up into a full basement. There were a few wooden shelves at the base of the stairs, but they were empty. Instead, it became a narrow passageway. The floor was made of dirt, and the walls were the same stone the foundation of the church was made from. It seemed whoever had built this tunnel built it at the same time as the church. The ceiling barely made it to 6 feet. I had to duck to keep from brushing my head against it. I wasn't sure what I expected to find, but this was the key to discovering what was happening here. I had been walking for 10 minutes, senses alert, hand on my holstered sidearm. Suddenly, the air changed. The smell became more pungent and the air warmer. There was a feeling of closing in that made the hairs on my arms stand up. I turned a corner and the tunnel opened into a large room with a high ceiling. I panned around trying to get the scope of the room when my light fell on something big in the corner. It looked like a massive black boulder that was made of leather. Watching, transfixed, I noticed it was moving. Not much, but just a bit rising and falling. I realized it was breathing. Fear gripped me. I no longer had any interest in finding out what was going on here. I just wanted to turn and slowly back away. The thing made a noise. It was either a snort or a cough, but in either case it seemed to be waking up. I doused my lights and stayed as still as possible while listening in the total darkness. Its breathing became louder and less steady. I heard a creaking that sounded like bones when someone stretched. It was getting up, and I was standing in the middle of the tunnel. If by some miracle it didn't already know I was here, as soon as it walked over here it would run right into me. My mind raced to come up with options as I heard footsteps coming closer. I backed up against the wall and started edging to the left, hoping I was in the main room and not still in the tunnel. The footsteps were so close when they suddenly stopped. The absence of sound was deafening. I tried to hold my breath as I listened for the beast's breathing. It was slow and sporadic, as if it was listening for me. Neither of us moved. We barely breathed, each waiting for the other to reveal their location. My hand drifted to the gun as I tried to pull it out of the holster, as quietly as possible. The air shifted. The beast had moved, but I didn't know where. I heard a strange squelching sound, and then... "What are you doing, Mr. Jones?" I tried to hold off as long as possible, but curiosity got the best of me. I turned on my headlamp to find the owner standing right in front of me, staring at me with a maddening smile. My eyes darted around, looking for the beast, but I knew I wouldn't find it. It was standing in front of me. "So, are you the real thing?" I said, hoping to keep the panic out of my voice. "Or are you some shapeshifter who pretends to be someone else because he has no identity of his own?" "I am whoever I want to be," he said. I heard the squelching again, only this time I had the displeasure of watching it happen. His entire body rippled and tore itself apart, only to reform into the beast for a moment, then tear apart again and reform into something much more terrifying. I gasped, looking into my very own eyes. "You see," he said in my voice, "I can take your place and travel around pretending to solve problems." While he was changing, I glanced around to see if there was anything else in the room I could use. In the far corner, I saw what looked like a nest and an inverted cross hanging on the wall. "If you could, why haven't you?" I said, playing a hunch. "What? If you were free to go anywhere, then why haven't you? Why sit here in the middle of the woods with nothing to do?" I choose to stay here, he said in my voice. You choose because this is where your power is. You know so little. I'm rebuilding this place so my worshippers can live here and pray to me, giving me all the power I need. Just like when this place was first built. And until my followers thrive, I survive off of human sacrifices. So you did kill the worker. And no one remembers him, just like they won't remember you. He grinned and took a step toward me, but I drew my pistol and shot him in the forehead. He fell to the ground, bleeding. It was a strange sight to watch myself die, but then the squelching began again, and he reshaped into his demonic form. He stood 10 feet tall and covered in leathery skin that looked like tiny teeth. His face was a nightmare of glowing red eyes and massive, sharp fangs. He roared at me in what sounded like 1,000 voices. I turned and ran down the tunnel, ducking so I didn't hit my head and knock myself out. That would have ended my escape and my life. I heard the squelching again and heard my voice call after me. You can't escape, and besides, I know how to find you. I turned and fired, hitting him, or me, in the chest. He dropped and squelched again. I wanted to watch him turn into his demon form, to see him squashed into the tunnel that was too small for him. But I didn't dare squander this time for anything but escape. It seemed like forever until I came to the stairs. I took them 2 at a time. Once I reached the top, I turned to see him at the bottom. I shot him again, then found a lantern inside the church, lit it, and tossed it down the stairs. The glass shattered, spreading fire all over the bottom stairs. They began to burn almost immediately. I could hear his desperate cries as the flames crawled up the stairs, destroying them one by one. Turning and running out the doors, I didn't bother with my things in my room. I hopped in my car and drove like a bat out of, well, you know. My hands shook on the steering wheel as I glanced in my rearview mirror, hoping I wouldn't see that thing chasing me. Instead, I saw a glow growing in the forest behind me. I prayed the whole church was on fire, and it would spread to all the houses. I only wished his followers were in the houses when they burned. I wondered how many more places there were like this in the world. The Devil Reaps the Harvest by John Oak Dalton. The laboratory at the end of the dead-end road had been closed for so long now that people had forgotten all about it, or tried to forget about it, and now everybody said it was an abandoned factory. It was there that Peter O'Day was supposed to meet a guy who had a couple of kidneys and a beer cooler. So Peter parked in a weed-choked employee lot and walked about a quarter of a mile into the woods, where the old laboratory sat. There, he was meeting Octavius. Octavius sounded like a mad scientist's name, and as it happened, Octavius kind of was a mad scientist. He had worked at the lab long ago, doing things that are frowned upon in the mainstream medical world, but that gig dried up. He ended up harvesting organs, which wasn't much of a step down. He still liked meeting people there for the handoff, because his greatest triumphs had been at that lab. Also his greatest failures, but those were buried here and there around the property. Peter had a bag of money, and Octavius had a cooler with organs in it and a New England Patriots sticker on it, so that went down about like you'd expect. Peter was a .com guy the bubble never burst on, so he had plenty of money and could jump the transplant list and buy a new kidney for their little girl, Alondra. People with money can pretty much do what they want. Just look at celebrities. They do drugs and get married 8 or 10 times, but can adopt all the kids they want and go on TV talking about various causes. If they did all the same things but lived in that trailer park on the other edge of town, the one called Morningside, but everybody actually called it Homicide, nobody would give them kids or want them on TV talking about their causes. When Peter took the Patriots cooler from Octavius that had a kidney and a spare for Alondra, his hands were shaking pretty badly.
and some of the blood sloshed out from under the lid and onto his shoes and into the dirt. And it wasn't until that very moment that Peter sort of realized what the hell he was doing. Octavius stepped back easily and missed the sloshing, but he was used to blood spraying out all over the place. Peter nodded and walked away, but Octavius stayed where he was, to his misfortune. He had parked behind the old lab on an access road everybody had forgotten about, too, because he did not want Peter or anybody else to see the car he drove. Peter was hardly out of sight when something just under Octavius's feet, where the blood was soaking in, sniffed and swallowed and opened its eyes. If this lab had been that good at black science, they'd still be in business, but they weren't, so they made the mistake of burying their problems instead of burning them in a big bonfire so that there would be no trace. Or, in this case, so something could not bite and claw its way with long fingernails and sharp teeth out of the dirt and grab Octavius by the ankles, then pull him to the ground and bite him right on his face. But his face was kind of bony, so it started working on some of the soft parts. Peter had stopped not far away to call his wife, but never heard a damn thing. It was ironic because as soon as that creature's hand popped out of the dirt, Octavius's heart popped like a balloon. All those times Octavius had arranged for guys to meet Russian women off the internet for a night of passion, only for those guys to wake up in the hotel tub packed in ice, or dumped in a landfill and never waking up at all. All those times Octavius never knew he needed an organ himself. He ignored the shortness of breath and the tingling in his fingers and all the rest. Like I said, if they were better at science, they would still have been in business. And if they weren't also lazy, they would have buried these things deeper. Peter's wife was named Stacy and was waiting in a big McMansion out in the suburbs for news of Alondra's kidney. Do I even need to say that this was his second wife? And very young? We're halfway there, Peter told her. It's not like a pig kidney or anything, she asked. How would I know? I don't know, she fretted. Look, this guy came highly recommended, and when it comes to Alondra, we don't have another choice. I know, said Stacy, and there was a lot in those words. And those two words were all the feelings Stacy had growing for little Alondra, and all the feelings Peter lacked. But Peter did what he had to do. What Peter had to do next was walk out of the edge of the overgrown parking lot and wait for a guy from the transplant organization he'd paid off. Actually, this guy, whose name was Rollo, knew Octavius quite well, but neither man wanted anyone to know they were connected. Rollo had worked in that lab too, back in the day. Not so much in the sciences as in the more nebulous parts of the organization. Octavius could have just given the organ to Rollo, but Octavius and Rollo always wanted a middleman. It wasn't foolproof, but it was better than nothing. Look, just go to the hospital and wait, Peter said. The guy is on his way here, and then he's going to be bringing the kidneys within the hour. Okay, said Stacy, but there was so much she could not face. She knew she was staying right where she was. Okay, and Peter hung up. Peter had only taken a few steps before he saw something moving in the trees, just out of the corner of his eye. Of course, Peter was thinking it was a cop, or the FBI, or maybe an investigative reporter trying to entrap him and put him on TV with all the pedophiles. So Peter stepped off the road and hid behind a tree, which was stupid because, unlike cops and FBI agents and reporters, what was shambling towards him could smell the blood on his shoes. Peter peeked around the tree and realized he was wrong about the cops and the reporters because how this person was dressed, how this shape was dressed, was in things Goodwill would not take. They looked like clothes somebody took out of a compost pile. Peter started moving quickly through the trees, trying not to slosh the beer cooler too much, and cut cross-country towards the parking lot. All the bones and muscles and ligaments in the thing sniffing along behind Peter, which seemed barely connected to each other, still let the thing move faster than you would think. But it would not have mattered if Peter had watched where he was going, which he did not. So he overshot the parking lot and thrashed deeper into the woods. And the thing that could smell his bloody footprints, who saw the shoe prints glowing like fire, kept on coming. Peter saw the bland gray concrete block of the lab building looming in front of him, and he realized he'd been a dumbass and circled back on himself. He was ultimately a tech guy. He'd never been much out in nature and did not really know how to navigate even a small forest of trees, much less tell one from another. And he'd never seen a dead body. But he recognized that Octavius was dead when he saw what was left of him in the small clearing where they had met up minutes ago. The chewed parts and the parts that should have been tucked inside but were glistening in the sun. The thing behind Peter was getting closer. So close now Peter could hear a slurping noise. And Peter turned and looked. And what he saw sent his heart plummeting and his balls scurrying up inside himself to meet it. And his butthole slammed shut with the finality of a coffin lid. Peter dropped the beer cooler, and this time a lot more blood sloshed out than was good, and the thing moved faster somehow. Peter grabbed the cooler back up and started running. Peter was running, and the only place he knew he was running was away, wherever that was. And he was bouncing off of trunks and getting whipped in the face by branches and all that because instead of joining Boy Scouts, he had taught himself computer programming. He was richer, but very close to being dead, so some of his life choices seemed poorer today. He kept splashing blood out of that cooler, and that wasn't great for Alondra, but more importantly for Peter, it wasn't great for him at all. So Peter stopped and opened the cooler. He plunged his hand in and grabbed out a kidney that was in a leaky sandwich bag, and he flung that kidney in a long red arc that hit the thing's chest with a wet sound and plopped into the grass. And the creature looked down at it with yellow eyes, and it gave Peter a chance to catch his breath. Then the creature showed broken teeth and reached down with those long nails and grabbed the kidney up. And it went down in one gulp, and Peter threw up in his mouth a little. When Peter ran this time, he didn't even pick up the cooler. The thing tipped the cooler back and gulped the other kidney down, and that bought Peter a little more time. Peter ran and looked back, and sure enough, in a minute or two he saw that raggedy shape moving between the trees again. Peter was looking back when his foot touched asphalt, and he was out on a country road. The woman driving the minivan was leaning over, pushing the Hocus Pocus DVD into the dashboard for her kids in the back seat to watch for the millionth time. So she didn't even tap the brake before she hit Peter head on. Rather than explain what that looked like, it's simpler to say the kids never asked to watch Hocus Pocus ever again. As it happens, Rollo was not too far behind the woman in a truck that looked like a medical vehicle, but really wasn't. Rollo was very quick on his feet and looked like he had a lot of authority. He bet on ponies with the same authority, but no common sense, which is what got him into this bad situation to begin with. It didn't take much for Rollo to convince the stunned woman that he was going to take care of everything, and she was free to go. He would even contact her insurance company for her. She wrote everything down on a piece of paper with tears in her eyes. Of course, as soon as she drove away, he chucked that paper in a cup of cold coffee he'd left on the dash. Rollo set to looking around for that cooler and started back into the tree line. He didn't find it, but he found a shambling, shuffling creature with blood dripping off of a lipless, leering mouth and grasping, clawed hands stained with blood. Rollo was a bad gambler, but he'd been a good crooked cop and a decent EMT who stole drugs, so he took a snub-nosed .32 he kept under his shirt tail in the back and shot that thing in both its yellow eyes. It fell down, as you might suspect, and did not get back up. Then Rollo found the empty, bloody cooler with the Patriot sticker on it. His mind remained remarkably clear, and he knew what he had to do. Rollo did a very good job at the transplant center, which was his real job now, but he paid special attention when he was getting a fat envelope on the side. Rollo pulled Peter's body up into the back of the white truck, that if you squinted your eyes at it, might be a medical vehicle. He had some tools back there that could have medical uses, The back of his truck was not as clean as some places, but it was not as dirty as the back room of that massage parlor where Rollo knew Octavius had done a little surgery. If he hadn't already been a decent EMT, he could have used YouTube. Stacy had been sitting very still in her spacious living room when the doorbell rang. She answered it, her hands trembling. 2 stone-faced men in dark suits stared at her. "Stacy O'Day?" one asked. It was more of a statement than a question. "Yes, is this about Alondra?" she asked. "In a manner of speaking," the man showed her a piece of official-looking paper. "This is a warrant to search your house." Stacy took a step back. "But Alondra's in the hospital. She needs a transplant. It's on its way. Why is this happening right now?" The man looked at her. "That's just it. The hospital checked. There's no record that Alondra was officially adopted from anywhere." Stacy swallowed hard. "There's no record she was ever enrolled in school." Stacy got her feet under her. She's homeschooled. Your neighbors have a lot to say. One of them says they saw a mattress on the floor in the basement, next to an ironing board and a stack of laundry." Stacy shook her head. "We're painting her room." "So, can you show me that room?" he asked. "Like I said, it's being painted." The cop gave her a 1,000-yard stare. "You're not the first housewife that needed a little help around the place." Tears showed in Stacy's eyes. "She's living better than she was in that hellhole orphanage." "She will be. She's in surgery, and the kidney looks like it's going to take." Stacy leaned against the wall with relief, which surprised the 2 cops. "But she's not coming back here," the cop added. Stacy stood up straight. "If I didn't care, I wouldn't have pushed to get her that kidney when she got sick." The cop had cold eyes. "What else could you do? I reckon you didn't keep the receipt." Stacy processed this. She looked the cop full in the face. "This whole thing, it started out differently than it ended, with Alondra. At least for me." Stacy making that statement was the only thing that kept the cops from cuffing her and banging her head on the door when they lowered her into the back seat. They let her walk out on her own free will, but she did not see that McMansion again for a long time. The cops assumed Peter had run out on Stacy and all of their problems. Nobody ever found a trace of him. They were soon distracted by a very large fire at an old factory in the woods outside of town, which burned a big tract of land. Rollo had a steady hand and a clear head, and got a bonus for all his quick thinking. Didn't change his luck at the track, but you can't have it all. Real Monsters from NEPA by Michelle Adler. "I don't know about the new kid. Don't you think he's a little weird?" Tom McCullough whispered, leaning slightly over his desk to get closer to his friend. "A little weird? Come on, he's a freak," Jacob nodded. They both snickered. In front of them sat Patrick Marshall Sherwood III, the aforementioned new kid. His incredibly formal-sounding name wasn't really befitting his posture. Hunched over, staring at his desk and wincing at their laughter. His dyed black shoulder-length hair, eyeliner, and all-black wardrobe should have succeeded in making him look dangerous. But in reality, it just made him look tired and pale. I have to admit, I felt bad for the kid. The rumor around school was that his dad had been killed by a pack of feral dogs while he and Patrick were camping somewhere in the mountains of Georgia. Patrick had somehow escaped meeting his end there, but he hadn't gotten away easily. His face and arms were covered in a multitude of deep, gnarly scars from the event, a permanent reminder that he, and only he, had survived something truly horrible, and not by much. To be fair, he'd have been an ugly kid even without the scars. He was just a little too lanky and awkward for me to believe he'd ever been cool. Life ain't really fair, I guess. I didn't know how much, if any, of the story was just dumb rumors. I wasn't even sure if Georgia had mountains, but if it was true, he'd picked just about the worst town to move to if he and his mom were trying to escape their tragic past. Our town, located in a quiet corner of northeastern Pennsylvania, was mostly rural, encompassing part of the valley and a lot of the surrounding woods. That might sound fine, though maybe boring on paper, but incidents involving feral dogs had always been common here. Usually it was just pets and small animals that went missing, but lately some cows had been found halfway eaten dotting the nearby farms. So more people were on edge than usual. Not really a vacation from their grief is what I mean. So back to the story. Those chuckleheads kept up with their insults for a while, calling him every name they could think of, poking him, sticking gum on his back, you name it. You'd probably have thought that our English teacher, Mrs. Alder, just kept blathering on about Shakespeare during all this. I wish she'd take notice, but she was so hard of hearing that I wasn't sure she could even hear what she was saying half the time. She was so old and fragile looking that I often wondered if she'd escaped a nursing home every morning just to come and teach us. It wasn't fair, though. I sat directly behind Tom in the last row of desks against the window, like a true delinquent I was, bouncing my leg, waiting for, a sign that I should jump in. I'm not proud of the fact that it took Patrick brushing teardrops off his desk for me to do something. I reached forward and punched the back of Tom's chair hard enough to get everyone, including our teacher's, attention. "Stop making fun of him, or the next thing I punch will be your face," I shouted. I saw Tom and Jacob flinch from behind. "Marisa," Mrs. Alder spat, sternly, miraculously cured of her partial deafness for a moment. "How many outbursts do we really need to have this week?" "But they were—" I tried. "No one will be picking on poor Patrick in my classroom. It's not his fault he's covered with horrible scars," she continued. I watched Patrick cringe, and the whole class began to giggle. There I go again, making matters worse. I left school late that day, long after the buses and carpools had gone. Basically my normal routine. Gotta make sure I don't run into any trouble. You see, like our scarred-up sad boy, I, too, was the subject of the other kids' hatred. But unlike him, I actually knew how to stand up for myself, and I could hold my own in a fight. Still, I didn't like to start trouble. I just relished in it when it came calling. But even if I won, bites and scratches do hurt after all, so it was better to avoid the rest of the student body when we were unsupervised, especially in the middle of the afternoon, in broad daylight. Who needs that kind of attention? However, on this particular day, waiting until my usual time, 4 p.m. to leave, wasn't enough. I pushed open the side entrance, and there was Patrick. He sat on the curb, his posture the same as earlier, the cool autumn breeze blowing his hair over his face. I held my breath, trying to be comically quiet and sneak away before he noticed. I just wanted to get home and not do my homework. Until again, I realized he was crying. I sighed and plopped myself down next to him. "Waiting for your folks to pick you up?" "Oh, right. I forgot. Dead dad. Your mom running late?" I corrected myself. "I don't think she's coming," he said softly, continuing to focus on the puddle of tears collecting on the asphalt. I realized this was the first time I'd heard him speak. "She's been different since... I can tell she doesn't like to look at me. Sometimes I think she forgets me on purpose. I would just try to walk back, but I don't know how to get home from here. I can't even look it up because a couple of kids from class pushed me and my phone broke my fall." "You just gonna sit here all night then?" "I was hoping to. I like the dark." I honestly couldn't tell if that line was supposed to be sarcastic. "Come on, tell me where you live. I'll walk you home," I offered as I stood up and brushed myself off. You're not going to trick me and leave me halfway and steal my wallet, right?" he asked expectantly. "Well, geez, not anymore, I'm not." Patrick let out a little chuckle. "Okay, maybe we can make this work." "I'm Marisa," I said, helping him up. "And I promise I won't hurt you. Us freaks gotta stick together." As it turned out, Patrick only lived 1 block over from me in the cute little Cape Cod that old Mr. Patel owned before he got sick and had to move in with his kids. It was great because I didn't really have to go out of my way, but also a little sad because I only live 6 blocks from the school. He was crying over a 10-minute walk. I agreed to help him find his way back to school the next morning and walk home with him again the following afternoon. Like I said, freaks need to stick together. So, is it true about what happened to your dad? I asked on our walk home the following afternoon. Patrick stopped dead in the center of the sidewalk. Isn't it obvious it is? He touched one of the scars on his arm tenderly. My dad is dead. My mom probably blames me, and I look like some villain from a slasher film. My life is totally ruined. Oh, that's a little dark, dude. I'm sorry. No, it's better if I just lean into it. I'm a monster now, and I have to get used to it, he sighed. Us monsters gotta stick together, I said like it was my tagline or something. Marisa, he said bluntly, you are not a monster. I furrowed my brow. He was silent the rest of the walk home. I felt bad for bringing up his dad, and wouldn't have blamed him if I didn't even get a goodbye. But when he was halfway up his driveway, he stopped. Marisa, I need to tell you something, he began without turning around. Can you keep a secret? What did I say 5 minutes ago about us sticking together? Patrick paused for a long time, like he was having trouble finding the right words. Listen, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but that's okay. Even I think I'm crazy sometimes. He clenched his fists tightly at his sides. But when we were camping, when those dogs showed up, they attacked me first. My dad fought so hard to stop them and lure them away from me. That's why he's dead. And I'm just this thing now. It's not your fault. No, that's not what I mean. When I was lying there, when they were tearing my dad to shreds, I could have sworn I heard them talking to each other. I could have sworn they were laughing. What does that even mean? I guess it's possible that I was delirious from blood loss, but if that's true, then how come even now, when it's really quiet, I can almost still hear them laughing? His voice was shaking. At this point, he was staring directly at me again, his eyes full of fear. Are you saying... I don't think they were dogs. I think they were... something else. Wolves, maybe? I offered. Patrick let out a little pitiful laugh. No, not wolves. So, now you know the truth. I'm crazy. Nice knowing you. I don't think you're crazy, Patrick, I said, not sure if I was lying or not. Either way, I don't think that's a good enough reason for us to stop hanging out. He smiled in a mix of confusion and relief. Thanks, Marisa. It seemed that letting someone else share his secret took a lot of weight off the poor guy's shoulders because, after that, he was a lot more outgoing around me. The edges of his sadness had been sanded down a little, and he actually let me get to know him. And as it turned out, Patrick was a pretty good kid. We were into the same comics and video games and even got each other's humor. We walked to and from school together every day for the next couple of weeks, and my mom let him stay for dinner most nights and sleep over on the weekends. As much as I considered myself something of a lone wolf, I had to admit it felt good to have someone around that really got me. I guess this is what it's like to have friends, huh? Things stayed good for a while. When the other kids realized that I'd taken him under my wing, a lot of the bullying stopped. And when he was picked on, he had gotten pretty good at standing up for himself. This, however, leads us to the incident that threatened to shatter the small bit of peace we'd begun to carve out for ourselves. Tom and Jacob, the only 2 kids still brazen enough to constantly mess with Patrick, had come up with a new way to get under his skin. You see, whenever Patrick tried to speak in class, or passed them in the hallway, or even entered a room, they'd howl like wolves. Because it was a relatively easy and safe way to upset him, they were usually able to get whoever else was around to howl along with them. I know it doesn't sound that bad, but after 3 days of it, Patrick wasn't looking too good. It happened in Mrs. Alder's class, as most bad things did. Man, she was a terrible teacher and was discussing another terrible book that they tell you is a classic and has all this symbolism, but was just written by some dumb guy who probably didn't even know what symbolism was. So, Who can tell me why they think the author decided to make the badge red? She asked. Everyone stayed perfectly still, dead-eyed, hoping to avoid being called on and having to discuss colors. Well, everyone except Patrick. He actually raised his hand. Ah, yes, Mr. Marshall Sherwood, please enlighten us. You see, there's not was all I could hear before a cacophony of howling delinquents overtook his quiet voice. Now, students, settle down and let him finish. You can howl all you want on the bus home, she said sternly in her traditionally tone-deaf sort of way. Silence returned to the room. Patrick tried again. There's not actually The howling returned, then quickly abated. Go on. Not actually howling, then silence again. A reason that howling, then silence. This pattern continued for a tragically long time. I thought maybe he'd be struggling to say that one sentence for the rest of the class, until during that last interruption, I saw something change in his eyes. Patrick had finally snapped. He waited patiently for the noise to calm and took a deep breath. Let me start over. There's not actually a reason. This time he didn't stop when they began again. He just slowly turned to Tom, who was directly behind him, grabbed him by the collar, and punched him in the face repeatedly, all the while continuing to relay his point about the book. When he was done, Tom's face was a mess, and there was no more howling, ever again. The rest isn't really important. Patrick went to the principal's office and got detention for the rest of the week, and Tom went to the nurse and got everyone's sympathy. Even though he'd gotten in trouble, Patrick's attitude drastically improved. Detention was a small price to pay for being able to speak again. This did mean that we couldn't walk home together for a while, though. On Fridays, he would usually pack an overnight bag and come straight home with me for the weekend. But with detention and his mom grounding him for beating Tom to a bloody pulp, Patrick told me we'd have to skip our normal weekend hangouts. I was actually relieved to hear it. It was a weird time of the month for me, and our hangout would have been super awkward. I felt I dodged a major bullet and was also thrilled that his mom was paying enough attention to know he'd gotten in trouble, and that she actually seemed to care. I expected an easy Friday night, so I was surprised that as I finished washing dishes from dinner and turned off the water, I was alerted to a frantic knocking at our front door. Maybe Patrick's mom had changed her mind, I figured. Disregarding the overwhelming panic that seemed to loom in the constant banging, I was totally shocked when the opening door revealed none other than the devil himself, Tom McCullough, still bruised from his run-in earlier in the week, panting hard. Why are you here? I asked. I really couldn't think of a single reason he'd want anything to do with me. He tried to catch his breath. Where's Patrick? He pleaded. What? You want a rematch? No, listen, I think I messed up. He was still trying to catch his breath. Had he ran all the way here? You want to apologize? Well, he isn't here. He's at home. Grounded. I was ready to close the door and get back to my evening. No, he isn't. I went there first. His mom said he never came home after detention. I was hoping I was wrong and that he's here, but... Oh no, I really messed up. His voice trembled. What are you trying to say, Tom? Maybe I already knew. My dad was pretty upset that I got beat up, and I was really angry, so I said some things about Patrick that maybe I shouldn't have. You know we own the farm on Schuylkill Road, right? And you know some of our animals have been killed lately, right? Well, he thinks... Tom struggled with how to say the next part. I could feel adrenaline creeping into my limbs. I heard him talking to his friends this afternoon, and I saw him load silver bullets into his shotgun. Marisa, he knows. Everything felt fuzzy. Where would they take him? I had to think clearly. There's woods on our property, 15 acres of it. We can basically do anything we want out there. Okay. I pushed him out of the way and proceeded down my steps. The sky was already turning pink and purple with the coming of evening. There was no more time. There was going to be a full moon. Tonight. Wait, I'll come with. No, it's dangerous and you've messed up enough. I thundered, not bothering to look back. This is why we don't tell adults things. They always get all murdery. Marisa, You have to understand, I didn't mean for this to happen. Sure, I've been messing with Patrick, but I would never want him to get..." He paused. "Hurt. I tried to stop my dad, tried to pretend I was lying about the whole thing, but he's so set on, well, that he wouldn't listen to me." I turned toward the direction of the farm and took off running. "Marisa!" Tom called out, but he was far behind me now. There was no way I could be there before the sun went down, but maybe I could still get there in time to stop them. By the time I reached Tom's family farm, the last threads of daylight were fading from the sky. I was exhausted but confident that I was about to get my second wind. The woods were dark and cool, and I could feel myself returning to my senses. I picked up speed, heading in the direction I was now confident I would find them. Please, let me make it in time. Eventually, distant chatter alerted me to Patrick's location. I approached quietly, hiding myself in the underbrush while I gauged the situation. Crickets and frogs had begun to sing in the blackness of the evening. 7 adults, with flashlights, were gathered in a circle. I couldn't see him, but I knew Patrick was in the center. Each man was carrying a firearm on his shoulder or holding one in his hand. I was not relieved to confirm that Tom had been telling the truth. "Please, I don't understand what you're talking about. What would I want with cows? I'm a vegetarian!" A voice that had to be Patrick's pleaded. In the back of my mind, I got a weird feeling that something wasn't right, but brushed it off. "Listen, we know it was you. I mean, a kid who's been attacked by feral dogs shows up and we just coincidentally start losing livestock? I don't need to be a statistician to see the connection," a man that was probably Tom's dad was saying. "Confess now, and maybe we'll be kind enough to let you live out the rest of your life in a cage." "I swear, I didn't do anything bad. I don't know what you've heard, but please, I'm telling you the truth," Patrick begged. "We'll see about that in a minute." "Any minute now," Mr. McCullough said, looking up at the sky. One of the other men cocked his rifle. "I'm tired of waiting. Let's get this over with. I'm missing my shows." A few of them began to argue about the merits of killing my friend now as opposed to later, and that was really enough for me. I moved forward slightly, twigs snapping under my weight, and let out a loud, guttural cry that just about shook the earth. The entire forest went completely silent, and stayed that way. I saw fear overtake the murderous group as they tried to find the source of the noise. I emerged confidently from my hiding place. "Let him go!" I howled. The blood collectively drained from their faces as they got a good look at me. I positioned myself to look as large as possible, my dense, wiry hair standing on end, teeth exposed in a snarl, saliva dripping from my jagged mouth. They pointed their guns in my direction, but I charged forward and latched onto the closest one, pulling it away from its owner and smacking him in the head with it. He hit the ground with the resounding thud. I bit into the rifle and broke it into pieces with my massive jaws as easily as if it had been a cracker. "You really think your tiny bullets can stop me?" I wailed. They inched back, still surrounding Patrick, but I was winning. Just one more push. "Guys, shoot him already!" "Oh, thanks, Mr. McCullough." "I've had enough!" I lunged at them, ready to do whatever I had to, but that was enough to send them running for their lives, scurrying away like the cockroaches they were. "Cowards!" I huffed. Patrick was still on the ground. His hands were tied and he looked a little beaten up. He stared up at me, his whole body shaking in fear. I poked my nose in closer and sniffed at his face, trying to wrap my mind around the situation. Then went for his hands. He flinched at my hot breath, not seeming to realize that I was chewing through the ropes and not his fingers. "It's okay. You're okay," I assured him, but he was just hopelessly confused. Suddenly, his posture shifted. "Marisa? Why are you a werewolf?" "Patrick, why are you not a werewolf?" "I don't know how to answer that. You aren't going to eat me, are you?" "Well, not anymore, I'm not," I groaned. "Us monsters gotta stick together after all."
Sin by Rob Fields. I'm sitting here in this motherfucking classroom, about to lose my motherfucking shit listening to this boring motherfucking lecture. Like I give two motherfucking shits about religion. Personally, I like my other classes. I just hate the ones about a fictitious god and the stories that come out of that big book of lies called the Holy Bible. That's what I get for coming to a hellhole like Strickfield Academy. Still, this place does have its advantages. For one, it's got great food, unlike your average high school cafeteria. Two, they give you these sexy schoolgirl outfits. And three, I get away with murder here. No, really, I do get away with murder here. Listen and learn. I'm listening to Sister Mary Theodore talking about some shit called Revelations. I can't wait to get the fuck out of here. Then these two cunts get my attention. We ain't allowed to have smartphones on in classes. Let these nuns catch you with one, you're lucky if you'll ever see it again. So these two are going old school, passing notes. Personally, I don't care if people pass notes. It's the two of them hissing psst when they pass them. When I've had enough of their pssts, I snatch the note and crinkle it up, making sure the nun catches me. She comes right over and holds out her hand. "Hand it over, Elaine. Now," she snaps. "That's Laney to you," I reply, and throw the crinkled ball up front. The bitch retrieves it and reads it to herself. Then she reads the rather interesting conversation to the whole class. These two both glare at me. After the rest of the class finishes laughing at the juiciness the sister just read, the girls are both told to go see Headmistress Hiltonson. Then the bitch points at me. "You too, Elaine. Now!" I sigh and grab my books. As long as it gets me out of this fucking class. "Excuse me?" she demands. "You heard me." I've easily got the attention of the other students. They know I don't take shit from anybody, especially these fucking nuns. Oh, I know Sister Theodore wants to call me everything but a child of God. I just love pushing her buttons, but not nearly as much as I love pushing Headmistress Hiltonson's. After school, I walk into detention hall, and those two cunts are here. I think their names are Joni Sawyer and Teresa Gilmer. Yep, they're glaring right at me. One, I got them both in trouble. Two, I only have to be in detention just today. Those two are here for a whole week. Ain't it funny? Those two are passing sexual notes to each other. I backtalked both Sister Theodore and Headmistress Hiltonson, and all I get is one detention period. I keep telling Hiltonson she can expel me anytime she likes, but she won't budge. Still, I cause more problems than both Janie and Teresa, and I keep getting the lesser punishments. "You're dead," Joni hisses. "After detention," Teresa adds. I roll my eyes. "Eat me." Remembering my shirt is tied up in front of me and not buttoned, I decide to provoke Joni and Teresa even more. And to show, I really don't give a fuck. I pull down my bra and shake my tits for them. I even get the appropriate reactions from everybody else in here. Joni and Teresa are out of their seats and ready to lunge at me when I quickly sit down. Sister Theodore, who's in charge of detention hall this week, comes in. I'm laughing inside when she points right at those two and tells them they'll be in detention all next week too. Teresa points right at me. "She just flashed her fucking tits at us." Bad move. Sister Theodore not only kicks them both out of detention hall, but she tacks on 2 more weeks for the F-bomb and the vulgar bodily reference. Her words. I'm serving my detention by reading my Bible. Oh no, I never read the false words of the fictitious God. No, I read a completely different Bible. To the naked eye, it looks like a copy of the Holy Bible, but what I'm really reading are the words of Hellweaver. There's no name for this Bible that I'm aware of. I found it when I was swimming naked in the Castalia River, next to some caves 2 weeks ago. I got out of the water and went into the cave where I was going to spend the night. Get the idea yet? I'm a fucking runaway. I ran away from home when I was 12. Believe it or not, I came from a very rich family. Probably not as rich as these Mirans living in Strickfield, but our family never wanted for anything. And that was the big problem right there. You'd think I'd be so happy with having money and power. The problem was money just didn't interest me. It's fucking toilet paper. Then there was the whole society thing and the government bullshit. To put it mildly, I just do not respect or appreciate being told what to do. I fucking hate rules. I fucking hate society. On my 12th birthday, I couldn't take it anymore. I left that huge fucking mansion in Los Angeles with only the clothes on my back. I didn't take my smartphone or any money. Why? I can just steal whatever I want. Through the years, I've paid my dues. I got my ass kicked. I learned to kick ass. I've even killed people. I learned so much in the wild that if it was a profession, I could have made big money. Anyway, I kept wandering from place to place, stealing everything I needed or living off the land. I'm currently 19 years old and doing just fine. Why did I come to Strickfield? I just happened to jump off a train in that area. As I walked the tracks, 2 girls wearing Strickfield Academy uniforms decided to fuck with me. When they decided to jump me from behind, I grabbed one girl and snapped her neck. Then I grabbed the other one and bit a huge chunk of flesh right out of her neck. She bled all over me before she fell over and died. I took both of their uniforms and washed them in the nearby river. Curiosity got the better of me, and I wanted to see what Strickfield Academy was all about. After checking it out and seeing the place was pretty much a parochial school for fucking rich brats, I decided to settle down here for the time being. Unfortunately, you needed money to go here, so I had to steal some. Far from that, getting in here was easy peasy. Getting back to swimming naked in the river, I was staying at this nearby cave. I got done swimming and was sitting down. I had a fire going and was eating a hot dog I was cooking on it. While I was eating, I saw something interesting sticking out a little further in the cave. I got up and went to look. I found and uncovered this big, thick book. A copy of the Bible? Fuck no! Who the hell would bury that fucking book in here? No. Someone buried this particular book to keep it secret. I took it back to my fire and opened it. The text was in some language I'd never seen before. Funny thing, though, I found I could both read and understand the words. I'm not any special kind of girl with powers or anything. The only other language I could speak fluently was Spanish. But there I was, reading away. I read about a demonic goddess called Hellweaver. Turns out she was banished to the hellish dimension known as Perdition. Hellweaver battled with an alien girl known as Janessa. Hellweaver was going to use the reality sphere to change the entire multiverse into a hellish one of her desire. Janessa had done the unthinkable and damaged the reality sphere to where it exploded. This Bible doesn't say what happened to Janessa, but Hellweaver found herself banished and imprisoned in Perdition, where she remains trapped to this day. Hellweaver had been able to communicate with other beings, which would explain how this Bible was created. Hellweaver had been trying to escape Perdition for eons. There were 2 ways to free Hellweaver. 1, find the reality sphere and throw it into the Infinity Core. But since us mortals can't exactly move through time and space, Hellweaver had to find another way. And she did. It's a long process, but if done correctly, it would weaken and shatter the barriers that keep Hellweaver locked in Perdition. In fact, That's what I'm reading about again here in detention right now. First, Hellweaver needs a disciple, an advocate, someone who's willing to give herself to Hellweaver. I already told you how sick I am of this fucking world, about everything being about money and rules. The more I'm reading these passages, the more I'm absolutely sure I want to commit myself to Hellweaver. Once I succeed in bringing her into our world, she can do what this Janessa kept her from doing, however long ago that was. The first step to becoming Hellweaver's advocate is to prove to her that I'm willing to do whatever it takes. In fact, that's what's going to happen after detention. 30 minutes go by quickly. Sister Theodore says we can leave. I repack my Bible and slide my backpack on. Sure enough, as soon as I leave through the gates of Strickfield Academy, Joni and Teresa are waiting for me, and they made it a point to bring friends. Teresa has a wicked smirk. "We're gonna fuck you up." "Should we kick or kill her ass?" Petatol asks. "Kill her ass!" Joni immediately answers. Then she takes a switchblade out and shows me the glistening steel. "After we cut off her tits." I smile a sexy smile. "What, these old things?" I pull my bra down and flash them all now. "Get her!" Peta yells. I quickly turn and run. I can hear all those bitches right behind me. I won't be able to outrun them, especially with the weight of my Hellweaver Bible in my backpack, but I can keep some distance in between me and them. Unlike them, I'm in great physical shape, thanks to enough years of exercising, and also running from the cops. I lead them to the abandoned house I've been staying at. When I reach it, I move to a basement window and throw my backpack in before I slide right in myself. I'm already moving up the stairway with my backpack when the bitches reach the window and start coming in. It takes the bitches long enough, but they finally find me sitting at a windowsill of what used to be the master bedroom, and my tits are still out for them to see. Joni points right at me. "Nowhere left to run. You are so fucking dead." I laugh. "Well, I'm right here. Come and get me." When they come for me, I pull 2 hunting knives out from behind me and go at 'em. The bitches are finding out this girl's got moves. In under 2 minutes, I've got multiple dead bodies all over the floor. I lick the blood off both knives before I put them down. You babes made me feel so dirty. I purr as I start taking my clothes off. I think I need a bath. When I'm fully naked, I look at the bodies, and you can help me fill the tub. I step into the full tub and lower my naked body into the blood. When I'm seated, I sink underneath the blood for a long moment and come back up. Those girls were more than enough to fill this tub. Their blood is so rich, so warm, and so sticky. No, I'm not taking after that blood countess. This blood won't let me retain my youth and hotness. Also, I'm pretty sure none of it is virgin blood. No, the first step to becoming Hellweaver's advocate is to wash yourself in the blood of your own kind. Mortals. I moan softly and scoop some blood into both hands. I bring them up and pour it over my face and hair. I bathe in this blood for several minutes before I get out of the tub and proceed to the second step. I lower myself to my knees and pick up one of the hearts I extracted from those girls. I don't even think about it as I bring it to my mouth and start eating. I have to eat all the hearts of those sinful mortals I killed for their blood. They couldn't be innocent hearts. I kept a close eye on this particular group. They didn't just bully other students at the academy. They sometimes beat them within an inch of their lives. They also committed burglaries and hurt the people they stole from, sometimes severely. I needed to show I was even more merciless than they were and would do whatever it took to win Hellweaver's favor. These hearts are actually delicious. In case you haven't figured it out, I've eaten other humans for food many times. Kill or be killed, that's how this world works. My tummy's really full, and I have one heart left to eat. I have to force myself to. I feel like I'm ready to burst. I feel like I'm going to puke. I keep taking in deep breaths until I'm starting to feel better, but I do finish eating that final heart. Now for the third and final step. I must summon Hellweaver herself and have her come before me. The Bible is already open to the pages I need. Then I light enough candles to illuminate this whole room for the ritual. Note, it's still daylight yet. I kneel down in front of the pages and start reading the incantations. When I finish, this light appears near me. I shriek with such happiness when I finally see her. Hellweaver is so very beautiful. I've only seen the renderings of her in this Bible, but they don't do her justice. Even though she appears before me, she's not really here. It's just a manifestation of herself from perdition. She's still trapped there until I can free her, which will take much longer than the summoning ritual I just did. I turn my body to face Hellweaver, but remain on my knees. It's really you! Hellweaver smiles and takes firm hold of my chin. And you are the first mortal to perform the ritual. This goddess is, the best way I can describe her, an amped-up version of a succubus. I mean, she's a combination of whatever makes up her flesh and her armor. The blank, fiery gems that are her eyes look deep into mine. You're so beautiful, I choke out. I love you. Hellweaver's still smiling. I have never seen or felt such devotion from one among your mortal kind. Please, please let me serve you, I beg her. She still holds my chin. I can feel that you abhor authority. Why would you now obey me? Because I want to free you, I reply. I want you to destroy this world and remake it the way you desire. I hate my people. I hate this world, what it's become. I want there to be hell on earth. I can feel myself crying now. I swear my eternal loyalty to you, my Hellweaver. I'll obey your every command, whatever you want. Name it. Hellweaver smiles again. Interesting. None have ever cried for me before. I've read your words, I reply. You're real. You're not a false god. I want to free you and be by your side. I'm crying more now. I love you, I choke out again. She lets go of my chin. Rise. She takes my hand and helps me to my feet. She takes a kind of motherly hold of my face as she looks into my teary eyes again. You have proven to me that you can become my advocate, Elena Lister. But you haven't just proven yourself to me, my daughter. You even feel for me. This is a first for both a disciple and a mortal. It was so easy for you to bathe in the foul blood of your own kind. However, eating all of their hearts was something only you have succeeded in doing. It shows that you would give your very existence to serve me. And you do not fear me. I do not know whether you are foolish or... I don't fear you because I love you, I cry. Do I need to prove myself more to show you that? Hellweaver considers me now. Come with me, my child. There is one way you shall prove your love for me. Suddenly, everything changes. Now I find myself in an extravagant bedroom. I know exactly where I am. This is my old house. I ran away from here when I was 12. Hellweaver folds her arms in front of her. You left your family at such a young age, especially when you had everything you could ever want. I hated my family, I growled. Everything was all about money and power. They were always forcing their ways on me, smothering me. This house felt like a fucking prison. I had to run away, and when I did, they wouldn't stop coming after me. Not because they love me, but because they wanted to prove their power and superiority. Then prove yours. Sever your ties with your family completely. Kill them. Kill all of them. Suddenly, an ancient-looking dagger appears in front of me. Do to them what you did to your enemies to summon me. Show me that you truly love and cherish only me. Do this act without mercy, and you shall be reborn unto me. I take the dagger and start moving throughout the house. Oh, the servants are quite surprised when they see me naked and soaked with blood, and that's the last thing they see before I use the dagger to kill them. Wow, my parents sure had a lot of servants. Next, I find my brothers and sisters, and I kill them too. A few of them don't recognize me because they were born after I ran away. As for my older siblings, they recognize me immediately. Being naked and bloody certainly gives me an advantage, huh? Now it's down to only my parents. I find Mom and Dad sitting in bed together and watching TV. No surprise the two of them aren't fucking as many kids as they've had together. Boy, do they ever shit when they see me. Elena? Mom gasps. Good God! Dad practically chokes out. I don't waste time and march right to their bed and slaughter them. I don't just give them a few stabs. I fucking lay into them. I hate them both so much that I viciously stab them multiple times. When their blood splashes on me, I rub it into the blood already on my body. Then I put the dagger down and tear them both open. I soak my hands in their blood and wet myself more with it. I even wash my face and hair with it. My Hellweaver watches me. Do you want me to eat their hearts too? I ask. Yes. I'm still very full from the other hearts I've already eaten, but I don't hesitate. I reach inside my parents and pull their hearts out. I eat them both in front of my Hellweaver. Much to my surprise, my tummy doesn't burst as I finish both of them. I love you, I tell her again. Anything you demand, I will do. She approaches me. Indeed, you have won my love, my child. You may yet serve me and rule at my side. But for you to do so, you must be reborn. You must shed your mortal roots. You must allow me to both destroy and remake you. This is all that I further require for you to be my true daughter. Will you knowingly and willingly give yourself unto me, body and soul? I look into the goddess's eyes. I give you my everything. Hurt me, torture me, abuse me any way you like. I'll prove my loyalty and love to you again and again. Anything. Make me yours. Very well. Then you shall be reborn unto me. The scenery changes again. We're in a temple, right in front of an altar. Even though Hellweaver can't leave perdition, she's able to bring me into her realm. My goddess lifts me into her arms and places me on the altar. Now she has fangs just like a vampire and sinks them deep into my neck. I moan hard as she drinks my blood. Next, she easily pushes her hot claws into my stomach. I'm in serious pain, especially when I feel her hand on my heart. The pain becomes so intense, I don't think anybody has ever felt this. I grit my teeth and want to scream so badly. My goddess stops drinking from me. Drink the pain in, my child. Accept and relish it. This is how you will shed your mortal roots and become my true daughter. Give yourself to me, body and soul. You must. Yes, I scream. Now I can see my beating heart in her hand as she pulls it right out of me. Next, my body begins to burn with her fire. The pain is terrible now as I feel my flesh and muscles burning right off my body. Soon I can feel I'm just a charred skeleton. I'm laying there helplessly as my Hellweaver devours my heart. I'm only a skeleton with just my eyes left. I look up at my beautiful goddess in all of her glory as she finishes eating my beating heart. Now she looks at me. You shall die and relinquish the mortal realm. You shall be reborn unto me very soon. I feel myself being levitated off the altar. Now I feel my skeleton disintegrating until there's literally nothing left of me. I'm dead, and yet I'm not. Now I'm in some kind of liquid, and I see something attached to my tummy, like a cord. I can see how tiny I truly am now. And then I realize what my Hellweaver meant when she said I had to be reborn unto her. I'm literally inside the goddess's womb, and she's pregnant with me. I'm literally watching my own birth as I grow inside my new mother. When the time comes, I can see myself being pushed out of her own body. I'm a baby all over again. I watch and feel myself grow and mature as my new mother feeds me from her own bountiful breasts and nurtures me. She teaches me everything I need to know, re-educating me. She gives all of herself to me, as an excellent mother would do with a child she truly loves. Until finally, I'm a full adult once again, as I wake up and find I'm in my own bed, in my new chambers. My new mother is at my bedside. Rise, my daughter, you have truly been reborn unto me. I sit up and face my new mother. Then she takes my hand so I can stand. She brings me to a walled mirror. I'm naked and I scream when I see my new body for the first time ever. My hair was just a dirty color before. Now it's a mix of flaming red and yellow. My eyes still look mortal, but now they're as red as my mother's. My tits were already sexy before, but now they're as big as mother's. I'm the sexiest I've ever looked. If I do say so, I'm the most beautiful thing that's ever existed now. Next to my mother, of course. I know I'm not mortal anymore. Truly, I have been reborn through mother. I quickly kneel before my new mother and cry again. I don't deserve this. Mother caresses my cheek and smiles. There is no return for you now. From the moment I birthed you, you truly became my daughter and my child. You ceased being Elena Lister when you surrendered yourself unto me, and now I shall give you a new name. From this moment forward, your name shall be Sin. Simply Sin, for you abound with so much of it, more than any other being I have ever encountered. She caresses my cheek again. Arise, Sin, and stand with me. As of now, you rule at my side. I obey Mother and stand in front of her. You are entrusted to complete the ritual, to release your mother from this prison that is perdition, and to help me see my vision for this multiverse to its end. I gaze into her eyes. Yes, Mother, I will not fail you. I cry again. Now she leans in and licks some of my tears away. Must you continue to cry? I can't help it, Mother. I love you so deeply, and you've truly blessed me with your love. That's why I know I can't fail you. Use the power I have given you, Sin. You are no longer mortal. Your power is now second only to my own. She presents me with new clothes to put on my new body. You shall return to Strickfield, to the exact moment when you summon me. From there you shall accomplish the first task needed for the ritual. Also, I have a second disciple on your world, my high priest. I have placed this knowledge within your mind as well. You shall know of my high priest once the two of you encounter one another. As I dress, I will myself to change. I now have wings and horns that are metallic and razor sharp, just like my beautiful mother. My outfit is an armored bra and panties set with open-toed stiletto boots. Mother is most pleased when she looks at me. Shall I begin now, Mother? I ask eagerly. Yes. The next morning, I'm walking the halls of Strickfield Academy. You wouldn't believe all the heads I'm turning now. The nuns are looking at me with such anger. Mother has truly given me a beautiful new body, and even greater beauty. I am Sin now, but I'll resume being Lainey Lister while in the mortal realm. I'm also in my human form, by the way. I'm only going to be here long enough to claim the heart of one of these nuns. It can't be just any nun, however. It must be one who's, shall we say, a wolf in sheep's clothing. Mother assured me that my new powers will allow me to find such a nun here easily. You will always find hypocritical, false servants within your churches or places that profess to follow in the path of their fictitious god. You will see their sins on them as plain as mortal days. And no sooner do I walk right past Sister Mary Theodore. Wow, this fucking nun reeks of sin. In fact, I can smell fresh sex right on her. "Elaine Lister," she yells at me. "Over here, now." I walk right over to her eagerly. She's looking me over now. As usual, I have my uniform shirt tied in a knot in front of me, showing off my tight bra with my new juicies ready to burst out. This time, I've got a belly button stud on, which is against the rules here. She grabs my arm and pulls me into an empty classroom. "Get in here right now, you Jezebel!" Then she pulls the door shut. When she turns and glares at me, I immediately notice she's looking me over more. "What? You don't want me to go to Headmistress Hiltonson's office again?" I purr softly. She's looking at my belly button stud. "Remove that, now!" I smile a very toothy smile. "Remove this?" I untie my shirt and shake myself a little to let it drop to the floor. She's ready to give me hell again, but I can literally feel the lust welling up inside her. "No?" I whisper. "Okay, maybe this." I grab the front of my bra, break it open and let it drop to the floor. Then I grab the nun and lock her in a deep, lustful kiss. She kisses me back with the same hunger and feels me up. Soon I let her strip me naked. Then I unzip the back of her habit and watch it fall to reveal she's not wearing anything underneath. Makes me wonder how many of her so-called God's commandments she's broken here at Strickfield Academy, including the one on committing adultery. I kiss her some more and caress her this time. For the record, I'm not going to have sex with her. I'm here with this wretched, sinful nun for one reason only. I feel her up a little longer before I will my fingernails to become claws and slide them into her flesh like butter. She only manages a gasp as I quickly rip her flesh open right up the middle. I reach up into Sister Theodore's ribcage and remove her corrupt heart. I hold the dripping trophy in front of me to examine it. Yes, this is perfect. "Well done, daughter. Now you must continue," I hear my mother in my mind. "Yes, mother. Your every wish is my command." This is only the first piece for the ritual to free Mother. There are many other pieces to obtain. A few more will be easy, while others will be most difficult. But I will free Mother. She will reshape this multiverse in her image. I'll be right there by her side to see it all happen. All life will be enslaved to her will, including you.
The God Tongue by Dan Wilder. Born without a tongue to grant him the power of speech, Ezra had long been the target of derision by his peers. So much so that when his beloved mother had breathed her last, he abandoned the home in which he was raised and took to the hills and forests that bordered the microcosm of the world's backwoods notions that was the town of Jaden's Cross. Once there, Ezra built himself a modest cabin financed with his meager inheritance, where he could find solace away from the chorus of mocking voices. Living off the land, Ezra killed only that which he could consume, and his growling stomach, coupled with his barren icebox, had told him it was high time to venture out into the crisp autumnal evening. After long, fruitless hours, Ezra had seen nary a hint of prey, and though the moon hung swollen in the sky, a mist had begun to encroach upon the landscape of stoic pines that pointed like accusing fingers at the heavens. Ezra exhaled wearily and sat down at the base of the nearest pine. The miasma played seductively at his neck and chin, causing his skin to turn to gooseflesh as the fog was a great deal cooler than the air that surrounded it. Ezra closed his eyes for a moment and let the symphony of the forest fill his ears. And, for minutes, it did just that, until his placid repose was shattered by the sound of a twig breaking that echoed through the cool air like the report of a shotgun being discharged. Ezra's eyes snapped open, and, as his gaze furtively darted to and fro, he spied majestic antlers rising from the fog. In a fluid motion, he rose to his feet and brought the sight of his Remington rifle to bear on the dark shape that stood just below the mist. Ezra squeezed the trigger, sending fire and thunder forth into the night, and as soon as they appeared, the antlers fell. He bolted forward through the swirling gray, which seemed to recoil from his advancing form as if fearful of his presence to his quarry. As he approached, the fog had now parted and refused to trespass where the beast lay. And while Ezra was unable to give voice to his shock, his slack jaw and bulging eyes more than conveyed his emotions, for while he expected to find a stag, he instead found a caricature of a man, albeit a man with antlers. Ezra kneeled and rolled the creature on its back. Its lifeless eyes were large, dark, and set wide upon a face covered in coarse fur. It wore little in the way of clothing, just a simple robe from which extended limbs that resembled a dog's leg, that ended in long, tapered fingers tipped with crimson nails. It was in one such appendage that the creature clutched what at first appeared to Ezra to be a smooth ebony stone. He reached for the object and found it malleable and warm. More flesh than mineral. As he turned the artifact over and over in his palm, the mist began to slowly creep back, and with it came the inhuman wailing. Ezra panicked as the mist around him produced its litany of grief, which resulted in a mad flight through the dense pines. As he ran, Ezra could feel the miasma strike his legs as it began to solidify into long, lashing tendrils. As if that wasn't disconcerting enough, the wailing had now transformed into protracted screams of pure rage. Onward he flew, tripping and struggling as the fog continued its battery. Finally, he saw the familiar outline of his cabin in the clearing just beyond the forest. He threw his weight against the unlocked front door and exploded into his domain. In an instant, he slammed shut the door, threw the bolt into place, and collapsed to the floor in a crumpled mass of pure exhaustion. He sat for minutes as hot tears ran down his cheeks and his heart beat so fast and hard that at any other time he would have been sure he was having a heart attack. Indeed, his hammering pulse was all he could hear, and it was that fact that made him realize that whatever outre abominations he had left behind in the woods, they had decided not to stray from that realm. Finally, he gained control of his faculties, moving his hands to his face to rub the last vestiges of tears from his eyes. Ezra realized he still clutched that preternatural stone, and where once it was merely matte black, now it glowed a brilliant gold from 1,000 hairline cracks that crossed its surface like arteries no wider than a human hair. Ezra was entranced by the artifact, so entranced he failed to notice the mist that had crept ever closer along the floorboards as it issued forth from the small wood-burning stove behind him. Ever onward it came, crawling up his back until finally it plunged deep into his brain via his left ear canal. Ezra's brain exploded with 1,000 images of a history, not his own. He saw an endless array of beings, more beast than man, hideous and beautiful in equal measure. He floated onward through a great city beneath the forest floor. Finally, he saw a diaphanous stag, over 20 feet high, its head adorned with 7 sets of antlers. The image swirled and rippled as the sight of that ebony edifice he held filled his field of vision. Ezra felt his arm move of its own accord, and while he struggled to make it remain at rest, He was powerless to stop its ascent or the action which followed. His hand simply placed the glowing midnight-hued object into his mouth, which had mechanically opened to accept it. For the briefest of seconds he could taste infinity, and with that he could feel a new organ grow inside him. A tongue, which pulsed and throbbed within his mouth. His first words were a scream. Then came blackness.
"You murdered the historian. You must take his place."
The voice echoed so loud in his mind that it snapped him awake. Ezra found himself lying on the cold floor of his cabin. "Historian?" he said involuntarily. His eyes grew wide as the memory of the dark tongue which had replaced his own missing organ flowed into his head. With a start, he lifted himself from the floor and sped to the bathroom. Examining himself in the mirror, he opened his mouth to view that demon tissue, which he seemed to know by some arcane intuition was connected to that ancient stag. There sat the obsidian stone-like mass of the previous night, but now it pulsed and throbbed with an unearthly power which flowed through those golden veins, which now had spread throughout the interior of his mouth. Ezra began clawing at the offending member, but to no avail. The flesh, though supple, was completely unyielding. His thoughts locked upon its removal. Ezra ran to the kitchen to procure a large steak knife. As he steeled his nerves, Ezra stuck out his tongue and brought the blade into place for the amputation. The air split with static before he could begin that dreaded surgery. The small shortwave radio, his one mechanical distraction which provided for him a chance to voyeuristically listen to the voices of others without being pressed to respond in kind, had come to life from its home atop his rough-hewn dining room table. As he dashed into the room, his eyes beheld yet another incomprehensible sight. The mist now solidified into the contours of a vaguely humanoid shape, save for the long horns protruding from its incorporeal forehead. It hunched over the device and exhaled streams of vapor directly into the microphone. From somewhere that sounded both close and at the opposite end of the galaxy came a sound that at first was not unlike the purring of a large cat, but quickly turned into a low, guttural growl before finally becoming words that simply could not have been formed by human lips.
"Pass on, old friend. We are coming."
Ezra reached for the figure, which dissipated into the ether at his touch, accompanied by a chorus of melodic laughter. He grabbed for the microphone in one hand, and with the other tried furiously to find the proper channel to connect him with the one agency he felt would be able to help him fend off whatever malevolence was creeping his way. The town militia of Jaden's Cross. Finally, he arrived at the proper frequency, and parted his dry lips to do that which had eluded him, these many years. Pressing the button which would allow his voice to travel the waves, Ezra began to speak. What followed was not one voice, but legion. Some were mere growls, others came like gently chirping birds, and a few were close to human, yet still possessing a preternatural timbre. But above all rang the impossibly deep tones of their god. For the stag did speak, the great animal whose voice was known when the universe was a mere speck of dust hanging like a mote in the eye of infinity. With that, the radio exploded in a shower of acrid smoke and sparks that knocked Ezra to the floor. Ezra began to weep, yet the sound of crying that issued from his mouth was again the product of that unholy throng. Unable to retain his tenuous grasp on sanity, he was determined to rip the organ from his mouth with his bare hands, hands that he noticed were covered in runes and glyphs carved deep upon the surface of his skin. Furiously, he flew again to the bathroom, where he exhaled in shock at the face that met his gaze within the mirror. Like his hands and every other scrap of visible flesh, he was covered in those strange markings. Ezra clawed at the skin, which gave way in thin sheets to reveal layers of fresh dermis below marked the same as the skin above. He attempted to scream, but what came instead was the shouting of every supernatural being that had ever or will ever walk the earth, all proclaiming their name to the midnight that lie just beyond the cabin's roof. Ezra ran towards the door of the cabin, the ancient instinct to flee that which we do not, or simply cannot understand overtaking him. But suddenly, he could move forward no more, as that demon mist once more held him firm where it issued from between the floorboards of the cabin to solidify into its humanoid form, the shifting arms of which wrapped tightly around its panic-stricken prey.
"You murdered me,"
it whispered seductively.
"Now you shall walk eternally into that resplendent ebony with your brethren."
Ezra struggled for a moment until a sound, distant at first yet growing ever nearer, began to fill the room. The pounding of hooves upon cold ground. The front door exploded in a maelstrom of splinters as a menagerie appeared that was equal parts animal and man, and the worst of both, Ezra once again succumbed to the ebon darkness. Over the next hours, Ezra would occasionally regain consciousness, and while the moonlight illuminated only endless miles of forest, it also revealed the talon-tipped hands that held him aloft, as well as the nightmares they belonged to. Finally, he came to. The group had stopped before a long-forgotten farmhouse. Even in the waning moonlight, the house looked impossibly ancient and beyond any hope of repair. One of the creatures to his left loped forward and threw open the large storm doors, whose hinges creaked and protested and led Ezra down into the darkness. They walked for what seemed several minutes through the inky blackness. Occasionally, Ezra could swear that he felt hot breath on the back of his neck, or a gentle touch of something inhuman reaching toward him from the darkness. Soon in the distance a faint light could be seen, which grew brighter and brighter, until Ezra could make out the lithe silhouette of his guide. They arrived in a large circular room which was carved from the earth itself. A multitude of doorways dotted the walls, and in the darkness of each, Ezra could see indescribable shapes moving ever closer in the light. Finally, all were revealed as creatures which may have been constructed of wild daydreams, absent visions, and children's chalk drawings gathered in the chamber. Ezra shrunk under their gaze, for here, as in the world above, he felt the outsider.
"Say hello to your new family,"
something croaked from the assemblage. A being, more owl than man, stepped from the crowd and stared at Ezra for what seemed like days. As it looked, it would crane its head from side to side and snap its great beak open and shut. Ezra stood, stock still. Suddenly, it dawned on him that the beast wasn't figuring out the best way to pluck out his eyes. Rather, it was reading the glyphs that adorned his face. He gasped as the owl spoke.
You tell the story of my family?"
Ezra could only stare at the being, dumbfounded.
"No,"
came a voice from the throng.
"He tells the tale of the Fleet Claws. I can read it even from here. And the Moon Wraiths,"
came a response from the crowd.
"No, he tells the story of us all. Look."
Ezra looked down at his hands, which had started to unravel into long flesh scrolls which were soon picked up by the discolored fingers, talons, and tentacles, the owners of which read aloud and babbled excitedly of the stories contained therein, of their sacred lineage, as well as their futures. Soon Ezra was unraveling from every piece of exposed skin, some of which drifted to the ground as torn pages from an ancient tome. More creatures arrived and picked up the pages, laughing as they celebrated all that made them. Onward and onward the pages and scrolls fell, until finally all that was left of Ezra were the pages themselves. Each tribesman held a page or scroll of their own, and each cherished the sacred words they contained.
"The stranger came to speak to us all, and what words he has brought us."
And that's Small Town Secrets, proof that the scariest places aren't abandoned. They're occupied by neighbors, by traditions, by things that have been normal for so long nobody remembers what exactly started them or what they're feeding. If you had a good time tonight, please do me a favor and follow Weekly Spooky on your favorite podcasting app. And while you're at it, why not leave a rating and tell a friend who swears their hometown is boring. Those are the ones with the best secrets. And don't go anywhere, because this Monday we've got a brand new Terrifying and True that's equal parts folklore, fever dream, and real-world tradition. Portugal's Carnival Demons, the Carretos de Intrudo. Imagine cowbells clattering through stone alleys, horned masks, wild ribbons, torchlight bonfires. It's ancient and unsettling, and I'll be telling you all about it on Monday. Until then, stay warm.